Are we set to lose yet again? Another Cobham start. Today, my friends, I'm here to discuss club news as well as all the latest scouting news because, as you know, this club never goes to sleep when it comes to potentially signing new players. So I hope you guys enjoy. Hit that like button, share your thoughts and opinions, and let's get straight into things. Let's start things off by discussing the scouting news first, as we turn our attentions to Levante young midfield sensation in Christensen Uche, who currently is taking La Liga by storm. Now, Relay will report the fact that we have made inquiries whilst also sending scouts to really heavily monitor and watch a midfield player. And it makes a lot of sense because clubs of our size, we have massive scouting networks. And naturally, with all the scouts that we hire, we got to put them to work right. So we have to constantly keep our database as current as possible when it comes to assessing all the exciting prospects that announce themselves season by season. Personally, I felt like recently I'm seeing a lot of African talent really emerging in La Liga. I don't know what it is about the league. Maybe it's the fact that there's a nice rhythm to La Liga. You know, they really play ball to feet. There's a lot of flow in the game there as well because players are encouraged to carry the ball no matter how big the distances are. And I've always really enjoyed watching Spanish football for those types of reasons. So it's no surprise that if you're a technical African player, you're going to be able to have some fun in that league and really announce yourself. And obviously, Uche, it's been a massive rise for him. He only signed last year for Levante for around 500,000 euros from a Spanish team that's like near the lower bottoms of the division rankings. So the fact that he's been able to instantly kind of just acclimatize to life at the highest level, at the elite level in Spain, it makes a lot of sense why a club like us would decide to scout him. Now, he scored one goal for Levante, and that's like the only game he played up front at the time because they lacked any strikers. And since then, he hasn't looked back, and he's brought a lot of energy in their midfield, a lot of good carrying. He's a very strong player as well too. You know, he really likes to get his body in front of the ball, and he's the type of player that understands that he has a physical advantage against his opposition. So, you know, he looks to use his frame and physique to win that ball back. So listen, I'm not here to say that he's ready to replace Lavia or Caicedo, absolutely not. But it makes sense for us to at least monitor the player because I'd imagine there could be a pretty affordable release clause attached, and who knows if we decided to buy him from our network, crazier things have happened. But regardless, you guys may be familiar with Uche for other bad reasons, sadly, as earlier this season, he was very vocal in his criticism of the refereeing standards in La Liga, really feeling like due to the color of his skin, he was getting a lot of, back-end treatment and double standards around his game and how he's treated by his opponents, constantly referring to the fact that he's getting kicked and fouled a lot and the referees are ignoring it and telling him to get up. Obviously, as we know, La Liga is notorious for a lot of the racial abuse that many black players there suffer. So the thing is, Uche was never punished by the league because he didn't insult the referee or question if he was good enough or anything like that. So who knows if he touched a nerve. Regardless, if he keeps his performances up, he may find himself playing in the Premier League at some point, but it was a pretty interesting story as it came from some reputable sources in Spain. So let's watch this space. Let's see what happens. Crazier things have happened. I remember years back, Moises Caicedo was first making his name in Ecuador, and we were one of the clubs who were heavily scouting him. And fast forward 4 or 5 years, and he's a record buy in Premier League history playing for us. So all I'm saying is that you may think some of these stories make no sense, but sometimes we just don't see it right now. Who knows what happens? And let's end things with the final scouting report as we turn our attentions to one of the rising stars of the Bundesliga, and that is England player in Jamie Bynoe-Gittens, who currently this season, 4 goals, 3 assists in 10 games, probably make that 5 goals, 3 assists in 11 games as he scored the second goal against Real Madrid in the CL. And listen, Gittens has been someone that they've put very protective arms around at Dortmund. They understand the talent he is. And now that other senior players ahead of him have been sold or moved on, it seems like this season in particular, Gittens is really showcasing everything he's learned over the previous seasons. He's showcasing why it's beneficial to give, exciting talent like this minutes per season, because you get them ready at an earlier age to start affecting the game at a young age. So he's had a great season so far. very skillful winger, excellent close control, and naturally, when you're performing for Dortmund, it's only a matter of time until big clubs across Europe start to look towards you. And it's no surprise that today reports have mentioned the fact that we have also sent scouts to heavily watch Bynoe-Gittens. It's not only us, Liverpool potentially see him as the replacement to Mohamed Salah. Big shoes to fill, I know, but currently many big clubs are scouting this kid, and it's for good reason. I feel like not only is he very dangerous with his close control, his explosiveness over distances, the most important thing is he has a football brain. He knows how to play, he knows how to move on the ball and off the ball. And on top of that too, I think he is showcasing that ability to be a match winner. I think when you're a young player that demonstrates that you can be a match winner at your age, I think this is what kind of alerts me towards you. Like, you have the potential to go to the next step, because there's a lot of like mental pressure that you're carrying at a young age when you tell yourself, listen, team, I can step up, I can get the 3 points, I can unlock the game, and I've always felt talents that can showcase that type of potential, they normally end up being the better type of players. He's also showcasing that he is improving as a football player. I think some of the goals he scored recently this season, like from very like acute angles from the left side, he's cutting inside really quickly, and he's looking to play quickly, to take his shots off quickly. And to showcase that type of understanding at a young age, I think it's pretty exciting in my opinion. He's a very exciting kid. I think the guy is a real maverick when it comes to carrying the ball, his start and stops, his ability to cut insides, take a man on for pace, close control, how he receives in wide areas and in more like channel areas as well too. I think the kid looks really exciting. I keep stressing that quite a lot. And if anything, would it surprise me if in the future we decided to invest money on the left wing? I'd say we still don't have that guaranteed number one at left wing so far. We've seen Felix, Sancho, Mudryk, and even Neto play there. As the season goes on, let's see who really owns that left wing spot for themselves. But you think to yourself, even though we have real talent there, do any of them have that potential to be world class, where they can get the assists, most importantly, get the goals, and bring that dribbling threat with the use of their feet and their pace as well? If I could combine all our current left wingers together, we'd probably have the best left winger in the world, right? So I don't know, would it surprise me if that's an area we're looking towards for the future? We can't forget that we made inquiries to try and sign Nico Williams from Athletic Bilbao, but in the end, of course, his wages were just too high for us, and the player wasn't interested in a move either. So let's see what the future holds. In my opinion, exciting to see, but I guess we keep our eyes out on Bynoe-Gittens, because if he doesn't leave Dortmund this summer, realistically, if I'm him, I leave in 2 years' time. I really cement myself as one of the best attacking talents in Europe. When you're 22 years old and your game's more complete, then think about coming back to the Premier League. And now let's end things by discussing the big club news of today, as I'll be already getting ready now to say goodbye to Josh Acheampong. Well, we have some big reports coming out from The Athletic, as well as Matt Law of The Telegraph as well. A lot of things to unpack and break down, but let's start off by discussing what we know from the news first. As we're learning, Acheampong's contract expires in 2026. He currently has 18 months left, and we know that under this new ownership, we don't like any players who have not committed their future here when they have less than 2 years on their existing deal. The Athletic remind us that we see him as the third choice behind Gusto and Reece James. They also reiterated the fact that we didn't continue for Pedro Lima because we felt like Acheampong was higher above him. But the reality is we haven't seen Josh even get minutes since the 27-minute cameo he had against Barrow, where he didn't even start that game. And knowing that Gusto and James were out for nearly a month combined and he had no opportunities in the team, it doesn't really say a lot, right? But it does seem like we understand the context as to why he hasn't featured recently. And we've learned from reports today that the club have frozen him out from getting minutes this season until he commits his future to this football club. Is that pretty harsh? Listen, it's not the first time that we've been pretty brutal towards young players. I mean, this ownership isn't even in a league of its own. Our old ownership used to do that, with the famous examples being Mark Guy and Tino Livramento. The club omitted them to train with the under-16s in pre-season, as both players didn't commit to signing a new long-term deal. And the reason as to why they did not commit to that was that at the time they wanted more assurances of a pathway to the first team, which they never got from the club, hence why they decided to leave for pastures new. That's just the reality of what happened. It wasn't because fearing of competition of Reece James, etc, etc. I've been saying this for so many years, and it doesn't make sense that Livramento, for example, would be afraid of, getting competition minutes from Reece James, knowing the fact that Reece isn't even playing week in, week out, and knowing the fact that you need to have two talented fullback options down either side. That's just the reality, right? So again, if it can happen to players like this, would it surprise me if the same thing now happened to Acheampong? Because he is also stalling as he wants more guarantees and assurances that there's a concrete pathway for him into the first team. I think that's fair. And I think that's even more fair for him to ask for that, considering the amount of interest this kid's currently getting. Liverpool, Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid. But since learning from new reports that came out from Matt Law that the club are actively focusing all their attentions on securing Acheampong's long-term future. Romano has also come out with his own reports, and as he says, from the club side, they feel that if Acheampong wants to be here on a consistent basis and be part of the squad, it's important that he extends his contract here. That's the message the club are communicating to the player and his camp. Matt Law also revealed that the club were left bewildered when they found out that the player hadn't committed to signing a contract extension that they thought he was close to signing. But it's the club's methods of completely ostracizing him from any minutes at all the right thing for a player at this age? Because since getting those 27 minutes against Bauer, he's not been playing for the under-21s this season. He's not playing any football at all. And to not play football for a month, which is like 1/9 of the season, it's a bit mad in my opinion. And you know what? He's not the first player who's questioned whether there is a viable pathway into the first team. I could say this because sometimes I don't always understand how clubs like us consistently find ourselves in these situations. But ultimately, if we control our transfer business a bit differently, who knows if we can find options where guys like Acheampong will feel confident to committing their futures at our club. Because I could say this, was he necessarily needed this summer, knowing the fact that the Sassy could play as the CCB in the middle of a back three, allowing Acheampong to play as a wide centre back, which is something he can also do. You could have easily had him, Fofana, Colwell, Badiashile, Disasi, knowing the fact that Maresca likes to have inverted fullbacks playing, which we currently have an abundance of. Remember, the club were happy to let Jalaba leave because they were ready to promote Acheampong over him. So what the club's saying and what they're doing with their actions are currently two completely different things. Listen, I think there were many things we could have done that gave Acheampong and his camp some confidence that he has a viable pathway at this football club, yeah? I know some of you guys might be thinking to yourself, listen, you're 17, 18 years old, you can't realistically expect to get minutes over Reece, Gusto, etc, etc. That isn't the point. The point is, what is my career plan? I see it like this. Why was he not allowed to go out on loan to Strasbourg for this season? That is an action. That tells the player, listen, we want to see you grow, we want to see you improve. We think you're good enough now to earn minutes right now. Go out there, showcase what you can do in Liga, and for the next 1 to 2 years, your development plan will be remaining at Strasbourg, and then you'll be assessed again in the future. That gives you something to work with. Not this current model where he doesn't even know whether he'll play a game before this year ends. How long is it going to take for the club and the player now to come to an agreement over a contract extension, to take away minutes from him, which is actively hurting his development right now? Is the club doing everything? Is the club moving in the right manner to even encourage and entice Acheampong to commit his future here? I'll let you guys think about that. Let's see how the story ends. It wouldn't be the first time that a Cobham star has had to leave to showcase their ability and their potential. Sometimes you have to do that. I think the famous example we've seen in recent seasons is even Cole Palmer for Man City. In hindsight, we look at that situation quite differently now, thinking how stupid of Man City to not give opportunities to a guy that they were literally seeing week in, week out for how many years, deemed him not ready yet for some reason, and currently he's one of the best players in the Premier League. For me, it's not that hard. If you back them, if you believe in their potential and believe in their current ability, create those pathways in the team. We once profited from that in the 19-20 season, and we had so much success from that financially due to the players that we sold and raised profit from, and even having players who participated in our first teams. And listen, I'm sorry, I don't think everyone we've signed is probably levels over. And I'm sorry, I don't think that all the business we've done has shown that we've signed players who are levels above players that we used to have. And even going back to the Livramento-Gueye example, they're two players that probably get into our squad right now. And you could argue that Gueye is better than most of our defenders in the squad currently. And imagine if we kept them, the millions we would have sold. So right now, the club have to show to Acheampong that, listen, we aren't just seeing you as someone that can make us money in the future. You aren't going to be the next great, pure profit sale from the football club, because we could be cynical, but that is most likely the reality at times, right? So it's up to the club to prove otherwise. So my friends, that's everything today. Share your thoughts and opinions. See you all soon. Cool.